experience in New York is very hard to describe because to me I didn't have much of one. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Rain. If you're a returning subscriber, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, as you can tell by the title, I'm going to be telling you guys why I dropped out of school in New York. If you're interested in hearing why I dropped out of school in New York, what it was like going to college in New York, and just day in and day out lifestyle being in New York City, just keep on watching and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, guys. So I'm gonna split this into, like, not split it, but like I'm gonna do it in sections like that my brain stays clear, because if not I'll ramble. So I'm gonna do it like why I decided to move to New York, because I know a lot of people are curious about that, and then what it was like going to school there, and then lastly obviously why I'm leaving. Part one, why I went to New York. So in high school, like all throughout even, let me not even say in high school, even like growing up, like I feel like we hear about college so much, like you're gonna go to college, like you always know like that's a part of your plan. Well, at least for me, I knew I would always go to college, but I had no desire to go to college in Texas, so it wasn't like a thing for me. I started traveling a little bit more and I started falling in love with like the city life, and if you don't know already, I live in like the suburbs. I've always lived in the suburbs, so I kind of wanted to experience living in the city, and the only place I could get that lifestyle somewhat is in New York. So by the time I was like in high school, I knew for a fact that I wanted to go to school in New York. I just didn't know like how I was going to accomplish that goal, because it does seem so far-fetched and it's very expensive. So fast forward into my senior year, I was starting to like take SATs and like do the whole senior year thing, and I didn't even know what schools I wanted to go to. Like I was literally just applying to schools in Texas just because, like, not because I necessarily wanted to go there or was my dream school. I was just applying there because I felt like that's what I had to do. So then one day my mom was like, are you gonna apply to PACE, which is the school I went to in New York and the school that I had always wanted to go to in New York? And I was like, no, like what am I applying for? Like I'm not gonna go there, like it's really expensive, like I cannot go there. So she just told me, she's like, just apply, like it's not gonna hurt, like just try, see what type of financial aid they give you and do it. So by December of my senior year, I had started applying to PACE and I got accepted. Okay, let me tell y'all the secret. I hadn't even been to New York up until the point of me going to college there. Just keep that thought in the back of your head. So I literally got accepted, and then me and my mom went to visit the school in February 1st to be exact. And this was my first time ever going to New York, and I was there for legit a day. Like I got there on like a Friday. My school visit was Saturday and I left Sunday morning. So I was legit in New York for a day. So I fell in love with the school, I fell in love with the campus, I fell in love with the city, which I thought was like a no-brainer. And then we left, and I basically, after that visit, I basically committed to the university, and I knew I was going to be going there in the fall of 2019. So second part of the video, which is what it was like going to school there. I moved to New York on August 26th, 2019. That was my move-in day, and I moved in. My roommates hadn't been there yet. Bear in mind, sorry to like add this in, I moved to New York with my best friend. So luckily for me, she was on this journey with me. I moved, and I was so freaking excited. And you can ask any of my friends, I wanted to get the hell up out of Houston. Like I hated it here. Like I hated everything about it. Like graduation day, it was all I could think about. At lunch when I was in high school, that's the only thing I would talk about. School started, and honestly, early on being there, I noticed that the people that I went to school with were really different from me, and I knew that they would be different, but not as different as I experienced. One, New York is a very diverse place, yes, but the school I went to wasn't all that diverse, and I think people think in their head that it is, but in reality it wasn't. At the beginning of going to school, like, it was very fun. Obviously the beginning of college, if you're not in college already, you know it's the best time because you have like welcome weeks, there's parties, there's things going on. School is not becoming a hassle for you yet, but as time goes on, those things begin to fade out, and you start to have to get comfortable with your surroundings. So I felt like around me, all I had was my best friend, and like although I was meeting such great people, like people who I'll know for a lifetime in New York that I really appreciate, but I never felt super connected to anyone. Like, and obviously it's because I wasn't there for that long, and two, I just feel like something about the city wasn't there. Like I just it didn't feel right. So I think September was a great month, October was a great month, and November is when shit started to hit the fan. I started realizing like I want to go home a lot. And it wasn't even like a feeling that I felt like once, like I got homesick once. It was like a constant feeling of like sadness kind of, but I wasn't trying to let that get to me. And for me, I'm a person who, as you can tell by my videos, I do have like a decent sized friend group, and the people I'm friends with, it's not like people that I met a year ago, it's not people I met 2 years ago, it's not even people really that I met when I got to high school. A lot of my friends are friends that I've had since like middle school, 6th grade. Like they've been my friends so long term. It's like not being able to find that and not being surrounded by people who, I don't know, like people that have a strong connection bond to, it was very uncomfortable for me. It was something that I hated. I found myself talking to my friends a lot, talking to my mom a lot, and I think you do that in college, but I feel like I did it a lot. Like I talked to my mom day in and day out being in New York. I just wasn't having that great of a time. Another big thing for me in New York is that if you live in New York, you know this, you cannot do anything in New York under the age of 21 years old. You cannot go to a bar. You can barely go to dinner. You cannot do anything. Me and my best friend, we tried to do everything under the sun, and not even things like we didn't even want to drink, like just to go out, just like get out of the house. It was just like it could never happen. So it just became like the same thing. Like the most we could do is go eat, like go for dinner. And when I say go to dinner, we couldn't even go to dinner past 10 p.m. because if it hit between the hours of 8 and 10, they may have not let you in because you're 18. So it was just a very sticky situation. I felt like, I'm gonna explain this more when I describe why I'm leaving, but the experience in New York, how do I say this? I feel like for a college student, it's not ideal, and I kind of expected that, but I thought that other things about the city and the school I was going to would make up for that, like missing out on a college experience, and I feel like it didn't. It's a really hard feeling. Like my experience in New York is very hard to describe because to me I didn't have much of one. Like my first semester in New York, I don't feel like there was much going on, to be honest. Like not much happened. The most I did was coming home. Like I could talk more to you about the things I did when I came home back to Houston rather than the things I was doing in New York, if that makes sense. But school itself was good. I made good grades. Like classes were easy. I liked the intimateness of going to Pace, but it was like the people, the day in and day out lifestyle of New York, like walking, getting on the train, going, all that stuff. It just seemed so redundant, and I started to feel like, why am I doing this? Like, ugh. So that brings me into the next part, which you guys probably have been waiting for, is why I am leaving. So let me give y'all a quick little story on how this happened, how I decided this. So I already had like I said, November is when shit started to hit the fan. So in November, I kind of had a feeling like I don't really like it here. And when I moved to New York, my mom always told me, like, if you like try it, go there, and if you don't like it, you can always come home. Like home will always be home. So I always had that mindset. So, but trust me, I really, till this day, I say I really wanted New York to work out for me. But in November, I realized that New York might not be for me. I slowly started realizing that because I'm a girl who like, I don't want to say I wanted a true college experience, because one thing about New York is I knew what I was walking into. I knew the New York lifestyle. I knew the trains. I knew the walking. I knew the cold. I knew the people. Even though I hadn't been to New York, I felt like I knew everything about it. And I don't think New York itself and the lifestyle of New York is not necessarily what I like. It was more so in comparison to the lifestyle that I live at home. You get what I'm saying? So in November, I just started having like little thoughts. Like I was like, I don't really like it here. Like what would life be like if I had stayed at home? Like just kind of having thoughts like that. When I went home for Thanksgiving break, I went home for like a week, and I was so devastated to go home after Thanksgiving, to go back to New York after Thanksgiving break. So after Thanksgiving break, we have like 2 weeks in school, and then it's winter break. So I told myself, if you go on winter break and you don't miss New York, you need to leave. You need to transfer, because you don't like it there. You don't, because you spent a month at home and you don't miss school, right? And I felt like that was a very valid way to think. Because I think that everybody at home, all my friends, a part of them missed school a little. I didn't miss school at all. So I went home for winter break, like Christmas break, and then I came back to New York, and I literally cried to go back to New York. I was so devastated. And when I got to New York, literally probably a week 2 weeks of me being there, I booked a ticket to come back home in like February. Bear in mind, I got home from winter break on like January 26th. I booked a ticket to leave like February 12th or something like that, like in no time. So it was just kind of like, do I even like it here? Like, do I even like New York? So then me and my best friend sat and we had a conversation about it, because I had never, like I said, I had never spoke to anyone about transferring. It was just an internal feeling. And one thing I didn't want to do, and why I hadn't talked to her about it, was because I didn't want to push the way I felt about the city onto her if she didn't feel the same way. But it was like a time where we could see, like we had a moment where we saw eye to eye on something without even talking about it, and that's when we decided. In New York, we had a friend and he had made a comment and it said, people in New York live the college struggle till they're 30. And if you haven't lived in New York, or maybe haven't experienced it in New York, you probably don't understand what that means. But people live in New York till they're grown. People who make 6 figures live in New York with roommates and in tiny shoe boxes. And I don't think it's not anything to look down on, because to me, that's when I moved to New York, that's what I thought I was okay with. And I know so many people that love living that way, but I realized that I come from a place where I've never had to live like that. And I realized being there that I really don't want to live like that. College makes you think a lot about what you want and like where you see yourself. And I just had to realize, like, is this what I want? Like, is this long-term what I want? My vision of New York, I felt like I was supposed to go there. Me going to college there would set up a foundation for a decent long-term life in New York City. Maybe not for the rest of my life, but for a decent amount of time. And I quickly realized that I don't even want this short term. When I came to that decision, I kind of wanted to give New York a chance in the second semester, but then the pandemic hit, so it kind of changed things a little. And I'm kind of glad, because in New York, I felt so foggy. Like, I felt so unmotivated. I felt like all I had going for myself was school. And it was just a shitty feeling, because you would think that going to New York in the place of where people make their dreams come true, that I wouldn't have felt that way, but I felt the exact opposite. So I came back home. I came back home and started a YouTube channel. I came back home and bought a car. I came back home and was able to start saving my money again. Like, these are things that I wasn't able to do when I was in New York. And it kind of proves my point of why I left. And overall, like, to just wrap all of this up, I'm gonna say I just left New York because it wasn't, some will say I'm not built for it, but it's not even that. I don't want people to think like I couldn't have made it in New York, or like I gave up on myself. It's not that I couldn't do it. It became a thing where it was like, why am I doing this? Especially as a college student, like, I feel like if I was in New York, maybe getting paid to live there, and I had a career that was establishing there, that would be one thing. But I was paying to be there. I took out loans to be there, to experience something. I don't regret my decision of moving to New York in the first place, and I also don't regret my decision on moving home. I feel like me moving to New York was something I had to see, because like I said in the beginning, that is something I've always wanted to do. Like, that wasn't a new founded desire that I had. It was something I have always wanted to do, and I feel like if I hadn't seen it for myself, I would have still had that want to see it, you know what I mean? And now that I've moved back, I've gained so much. And going to New York, I met so many great people. I've met lifelong people who I'll be in their life, they'll be in my life, and I'm beyond grateful for that. I just feel like in the long run, it wasn't the place for me. I love home, and home is where I feel the most grounded and where I feel the most support. And when it's time to venture out, or when I have opportunity in other places, I'll pick up those opportunities and take them as they come. But for now, this is the best place for me. And yeah, so that's all I have for you guys today. If you guys want to hear any more about my story, or just even hear me talk about college, because I think that I gained so much insight by going to New York about school and about myself. So if you want to hear anything about college, advice about college, anything more about what it was like, I could go on about this topic for ages, as you can tell by this video. So if you want to hear me talk about it anymore, or you have any specific questions, just comment them down below. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching and staying tuned. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, guys, and we'll be back with another video.